anywhere from 200,000 to 400,000 women were raped. In terms of the background, I think, obviously we know partition in 1947 led to the two wings of East and West Pakistan. On the ground in East Pakistan, which had the larger population, arguably larger resource share, was contributing more in terms of the overall Pakistani state. But because of Pakistan's drive as a country to homogenize under religion and language, specifically, obviously, Urdu and Islam, there was a repression of the people and the linguistic and ethnic rights of those that were in East Pakistan or the Bengali culture. A lot of that was because the West Pakistani leadership viewed this culture, Bengali culture, as too heavily tied to Hinduism and to Hindus. Right, the language, the script was still Devanagari script. The dress for women, the sari, and even Muslim women use the bindi. The poetry, the culture in general, you can't separate it from the Hindu culture and Hindu, people. And so that was viewed as a threat to this unification of the Pakistani state. Then there was just the superiority complex that the West Pakistanis had, that we are the superior people. A lot of that was driven by, obviously the British, classifications of who were martial races, et cetera. But also there was this kind of sense that, they are the, the inheritors of the Mughal culture, the Mughal people, and the rulers. Therefore, they had a right to rule, and so they looked down upon the Bengali people and Bengali culture in general. And so that led to a series of measures and repression of banning Bengali as a language, not providing help during the Bolna cyclone. Obviously, what happened during the elections in I think it was 1970, I believe. When Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and the Awami League party actually won the majority of seats, but because again of the West Pakistani leadership's views, they did not want to cede power. So there were a lot of these types of cultural, ethnic, and linguistic factors that led to what happened in 1971. So it was kind of a long time coming, and a lot of factors. I think what I would identify, all of these obviously were important, but I think what I would identify as probably the number one is the religious factor. And that's why we saw a lot of the actions that took place in 71 that were directed specifically against Hindus was motivated by that factor, because Hindus equaled India. And that, again, was a threat to the conception of Pakistan and Pakistani unity. And then in 1971, of course, when Bangladesh was on the precipice and declaring independence on March 26th, the night before, Operation Searchlight started, where the Pakistani army started their army operations to put down the independence movement, and they started with Jagannath Hall. And by no coincidence, Jagannath Hall in Dhaka University was that dormitory was a well-known site for minority students and primarily Hindu students. So that symbolism there of also to start at Jagannath Hall was also very important, and in terms of their drive to really go after Hindus and target Hindus. And then you saw basically a almost 10-month long a spasm of violence, genocidal acts committed by the West Pakistani army in conjunction with local collaborators. So the West Pakistani army obviously couldn't, do all these acts by themselves or alone, and so they worked closely with militias, paramilitary militias that were formed that came from the Islamist organization Jamaat-e-Islami, which created these brigades: Al-Sham's brigade, Al-Aqsa brigade, and the Razakars. And so these were Al-Badr, Al-Shams, and the Razakars. And these are some of the main militias that came from Jamaat-e-Islami and its student wing, Islami Chatra Shibir. And they were the ones who helped kind of point out where the Hindu villages were. They helped in committing acts of violence themselves. And so you saw over that 10-month period, estimates vary widely. We do concede that, but the most common estimates are 2 to 3 million people were killed, the majority of whom were Hindus. Up to 10 million people were displaced, again, majority Hindus, many of whom sought refuge in India, and anywhere from 200,000 to 400,000 women were raped. And what's also notable and important is that this war and during this genocide was the first time in contemporary history that rape was used as a weapon of subjugation and used as a wartime tool. And the actual rape camps were set up. So it wasn't just that these were sporadic or they happened just in the midst. There was a planning that went into this, and it was done systematically. It was done in mass, and it was done. We always see that women are viewed as targets to subjugate entire populations. I mean, we see it still happening when we hear about conversions and kidnappings of minority girls in Bangladesh today, or even in Pakistan. That this is the first kind of line to commit war on entire minority populations. And so that was another aspect, I think, of the genocide and the war that's very important. And we still see, I think there have been some excellent books and documentaries about what happened during the war, specifically about the sexual violence that was committed. So, you saw kind of the range of atrocities being committed. And unfortunately, obviously, thankfully, I should say first that India intervened to help provide Bangladesh liberation. But after the war, there was an agreement that was formed between Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, and that provided amnesty. So no Pakistani or West Pakistani military official has ever been held to account. Pakistan has not, kind of admitted responsibility or taken accountability for that. There was a post-war judicial commission that was started in Pakistan, known as the Amdur Inquiry Commission, and that commission found, they downplayed the scale of the war and of the genocide and what happened, but they did have Pakistani officials on record admitting that they were targeting Hindus. And there's some conversations in there, some transcripts where basically there were conversations between military officials saying, well, how many Hindus did you kill today? And so, this was an extensive genocide, and it's unfortunately something that has not been talked about